Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 53rd episode of Kouryer podcast. Today, I'm joined with zizi nishnianidze. She's an illustrator and character artist from Tiblisi, Georgia. And I mean, it's kind of obvious that not the Georgia, the state of Georgia, the Georgia, the country of Georgia, you know? And well, with that out of the way, could you please give us a little introduction on how we got into visual arts and design?
Hi, I'm like you already mentioned, I'm Zizi. So I got in art when I was like 3. I was really artsy kid, and at 11 I joined some art academy. Like my dad got me into it, and I was like a trained painter or something. And at some point, my dad was working on a magazine, and there was this digital artist working with him. So we saw that he had this tablet that he was drawing from, and my mom was like, maybe we should get it for her. Like, and they gave it to me for New Year's. It was like one of the best presents I ever received. So I gradually started moving towards digital art. I'm still very into traditional, but yeah, that was like in 2013, and since then I've been a very much avid digital artist.
Awesome. And by the way, do you remember recall what kind of tablet was it? What model was it, by any chance? Or do you still have it?
The tablet model of the tablet, I actually still have it.
Yes,
It
yes, the
was a
tablet.
monoprice, like giant thing, which lasted. It was a giant monoprice, like a very old model, because my parents couldn't afford a very fancy one. So I had that one for like years. I think I still have it. It broke like 4 years into use, and now and then I actually bought my second one, Wacom Intuos, with my own first paycheck. It was so awesome.
Yeah, it feels different when you buy it with your own money. And I actually remember like 2 years ago, I wanted to get into jujitsu a lot and I wanted to buy the gi for it. You know, the gi is the traditional cloth you have to wear. And it was pretty expensive because all of the gis, and it wasn't like you could buy a second-hand cheap version of it, the Chinese version of it. No, it's like something that's been like basically they're good quality all around. Yeah, and of course they were expensive and they were like 700, 800 liras, and I got a part-time job for a month and I could buy it and it was so rewarding. But that's actually not the inspiring story because I'm actually looking to sell it because I'm not into gi anymore. But that's not the point. And yeah, let's move on to the next question. Were you originally studying art and design or you were pursuing another career path?
I actually wanted, I actually was into many stuff. At some point, I wanted to be a physicist. At some point, I wanted to be a doctor or a surgeon. Then I discovered I was afraid of blood. Then, like at some point, I realized that art was something I wanted to do. Like at the point when I decided when I discovered the oil painting. Like I was 11 when my dad brought me to that school. But then I had something like you can never get any job from art. Like artist jobs are very scarce because they were in 90s and early 2000s. And I was actually considering international relations and Japanese. I actually learned Japanese. Uh, but at some point, it is a very funny story. I often tell it. Uh, I was having a fight with my ex, my first ex, and I'm like crying in the rain, and we're standing in the street, and he just turns to me and said, "Wait, have you considered going to art school because you're very good at it?" And I was like, "Hey, why not?" And then I went to art school, and this is my career.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I'm glad you found your passion and calling. And of course, it wasn't in the really most happiest moments, but it's still, you found it. I mean, that's life. And what is your main branch of design that you're focusing on? And tell us about your experience from the start of it until now. I mean, of course, I already mentioned that you're working on character art and you're an illustrator, but we're going a bit in more in depth, you know? So tell us about that.
Okay, so I went to school for graphic design, well, communication design, which is graphic design, print design, and web design. I actually work my day job. I consider it a day job is graphic design and data design. I do infographics, like print stuff, brochures, logos, and other kind of stuff. I'm not really into that, and that's why I decided to branch out to Instagram with more of my passion projects, which are my illustrations and character arts, because I've been very into drawing characters. But in Georgia, it's very hard to find an illustration job because there are very few. There were few opportunities as compared to a graphic designer, and I'm now branching out to UX design, which is user experience design, which is a completely different thing. But I'm really like trying all the design kinds I can, so and seeing what sticks, basically.
Great. And all right, now this question is we're going to get a bit more technical now. How does your design process usually go any more time you want to start working on a project?
Okay, so this is like I always have a general idea in my head. The drawing may not turn out the one I had imagined in my head, but I always have that image. So I sketch, I do some warm-up sketches. I try not to like stress myself about a sketching process because it doesn't have to be neat. It doesn't have to be like I don't know, the perfect thing. So I do a rough sketch and then I sometimes trace around it, and sometimes if the sketch is very neat, I actually erase the wrong stuff and I leave the outline like that, like the sketch thing. So sometimes my drawings are little sketches, sometimes they're more of a like polished things. Then I actually hate flat colors, like base colors when you have to color in every detail. I hate it, and it takes the most time. But I really love the shading because digital art is more like is a lot like oil painting. My digital art process, because you have to be like from in watercolors you have to do from you have to go from light to dark, from light to shadow. But in digital design and in oil paint, you have to go from dark to light, because in oils, you just if you start with light, you might oversaturate it with oil, and it will be ruined. The painting will be ruined. Well, it's not. And in digital art, it can be like you can confuse the shadow. So sometimes it's better to start with a darker tone and go to light. So I really like that process because I've been doing this since I was 11.
Great. And all right, I have to announce something before we move to the next question. For anyone who's been listening to this now, this is now minute 8 mark. Please leave a comment down below and tell me what questions you want me to ask the artists, or just comment below so I know you're listening. Actually, I want to know the audience retention of the podcast, whether on YouTube, Castbox, Instagram. No, actually, you can't listen to Instagram past 5 minutes. So go watch on YouTube and Spotify. So there's that. And also, it's another historic moment for the podcast because right now, as we were talking and she was responding to my previous message, I added a new type of question to the podcast. And of course, I'm going to reveal it later in the episode, which from now on, I will ask every single artist as well. So please sit back, relax, and yep, enjoy the podcast. All right, let's go to the next section of the podcast. In this kind of like a section of the podcast is kind of like a general art, like freestyling. Like there's no particular questions, but of course I prepared some material for this as well. I saw like in one of your stories that you won like a Garage 48 hackathon. What was that?
Okay, so some like foreshadowing. In school, I was known as Olympia, like because I never skipped an Olympiad that was like math Olympiad. We called it Olympiad here. Like in Georgian English, I won many of them. So I really like contests. I'm really competitive person. I sometimes I try not to be because it ruins me. So when I transitioned from school to uni, I discovered hackathons, which are like you create a product based on a theme, and you get like cash things, or they help you realize the project. So that garage hackathon was like my third win. It was my third win. It was, I think, my biggest win because I had the biggest team for it, and it was a really big accomplishment because I put pulled like two all-nighters for that. So we created a product. I was a UX designer and an animator for it, which was like Symphony of Emotions, which was basically a psychological diary of your emotions. Like you inputted your emotions into the app and it gave you music which corresponded to that emotion. So it was like your diary, for example, like your whole week. You could like put, yeah, show me how I was feeling this week, and it would play you music that was uniquely yours and no one else's. And you could actually share that with your psychiatrist, your therapist, or your friends, or maybe even on Instagram. We're actually still realizing that project because we had some issues with the funding, but I think I have a developer and I think I will finish it in near months, like maybe till the next, maybe this year. I don't know really well, but it was really fun project and it was like the most fun project I've made.
I just want to say one thing. Please don't rush this project because it sounds amazing. Please don't rush it. Take your time. It's fine. Like, you know what? It's like one of those ideas that you think someone already, because it's not the like the least obvious, idea, but it's, but if you guys could pull it off, I mean, it actually, I don't know if you saw on my expression or anyone who's watching on YouTube, so my eyebrows went like, what? That actually sounds like that, like freaking amazing. I'm not kidding. Like that's gonna be. But I mean, of course, there's some challenges for it. I assume that you guys are tackling for like trying to like making like a tag for every song, like which kind of like category of moods or of emotions does it fall under. But I'm sure you guys are figuring this out. So I mean, and please do let me know so I can share it with the audience of the podcast as well in the future. Please, thank you. And the next thing I actually want to ask you about is it's kind of interesting. You're actually not, you're the second Georgian guest I had this on this podcast. The last one was episode 38, if I'm not mistaken, 38 or 37. Let me check. Oh, it's 38 with Nicolas Kuparadze, and you're both into D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. And now I want to actually talk to you, tell me a bit about your background on how you knew D&D, and also describe your character from D&D to us.
Okay, so I actually accidentally got into D&D like a year, 2 years ago with my new friend group, and I actually became like closest friends with those people. I actually met my boyfriend through D&D. He was a very sketchy character. I don't know how it worked out. So I'm actually coming straight from a D&D session right now. Like today, I had a D&D session. So we have this really close friend group, and it's our second campaign. The first one was kind of like testing the grounds. Our characters were underdeveloped. They were like generic, yeah, I'm a hero or I fight. But right now we are so into it. Like I have DM'd also for another campaign. So we are so into it that we created more quirky characters to go with the storyline because it's a role play thing. Like the combat isn't the most important thing in this. It's like how you play the character. So I have this character. Her name is Marcy. And she's a vampire who wants to like change the world and to make world less prejudiced for vampires. And she's the warlock, which means she sold her soul, and she sold her soul to a sword, which is also her boyfriend. And I actually made this. Oh, also, she's wanted on her continent for tax evasion. She's a criminal. So I actually drew her today. I think I can show you.
Yeah, awesome. That's a good segue.
Let me.
Right, no problem.
This is my sketchbook.
Looks nice.
I actually drew her today.
Interesting.
So this is her, and yeah, she has a boyfriend that is a sword, and she also has a lisp. And I had to like in the car ride here, I had to like, don't don't speak like this, please. Don't go on a podcast speaking like this. So
What?
yeah.
Oh, you were in the act of the character, like you trying to. Oh,
Yeah, she has a lisp
nice.
because
Yeah.
she has a lisp because her teeth are too big for her mouth.
Mm. But here's the thing:
Because she
don't
like,
most the vampires in media like they speak normally, but their mouth and teeth are just adapted. So I mean, it's okay. I think for her to speak normally without lisp. But I mean, maybe that's a character quirk you just added. Yeah.
yeah, I like the idea of a vampire with a lisp.
Yeah, interesting. It kind of contradicts the whole serious scariness of the concept of a vampire.
No, she's really wacky and really silly and kind of like very loud and cheerful. And she has this like, my friend is playing this poor student who has student loans he can't pay. So my character only does consensual biting. So she actually feeds this poor guy because he has no money. She gives him food and stuff so she can bite him.
Interesting. Cool concept. And all right, let's. Oh, for everyone who listened like 8 minutes ago, I said there I added a question to the podcast. This is it. So strap in. Um, have you ever used your dreams as inspirations for your works? And also tell us about any particular dream that comes to your mind that was really memorable for you.
Okay, so I actually really often do stuff from my dreams because I have very vivid dreams, and I actually have a whole world in my dream. Like, I have a dream lore. I'm such a fan of fantasy lores that I invented something in my subconscious, and it's like Tbilisi but with extra places, and they are like connected via streets that don't exist, and I actually know how to get there. Like, if you let me go to the street, I will know that, okay, in my dreams there's this street that leads to this building. I have it mapped out. I actually have few characters I play in it, and I have done OCs based on those characters or characters I've seen like NPCs in my dreams. And there is this like weird powers, and sometimes I use those powers and power surges for that. So yeah, I'm a very vivid dreamer. I have some concepts like I come up with during sleep or maybe while I'm dozing off. For example, a vampire with a lisp. I came up with that, and actually came up with this concept. There is this very old horror book, King in Yellow, which also was incorporated by H.P. Lovecraft. I'm a very much Lovecraft fan. So I actually figured out I would create a character, my OC, who is actually that infamous King in Yellow, which is a very terrifying creature, and made him a gay middle-aged man who is in love with a wizard, and they have a kid together, and have him like change diapers and feed the baby and then go terrorize the village with his tentacles.
Well, that sounds peculiar but interesting. Yeah, and all right, next question. Who are your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most?
Okay, my favorite artist at this moment is on the Instagram. You can search her as Alba BG, Alba Ballesta Gonzalez. I think her name is. There is also this artist. I mostly am inspired by Instagram artists. There is this one Mace too, also, and there is this one Georgian artist Natia Zarandia. She is the like one of the best artist I've ever known, and she's so underrated. It's criminal how underrated she is. Well, also besides that, I'm also an art student, and I have like very I my degree included art history. So I've also had very much influences from history. For example, Hieronymus Bosch's Hell panel inspired so much of my art. Like medieval art, medieval gravures inspired so much of my art. I can tell you how much. So yeah, there's that. I actually find inspirations from every day, from clothing designers to graphic designers to writers, because I'm a very avid reader. I like books, so yeah, I think I am a person who can get inspiration from anything and appreciate many things.
All right, that sounds awesome. And all right, next question. What is the main subject of your artworks and what made them interesting to you? By artworks here, I mean the works that you do for your personal projects, not the works you're commissioned, of course.
So I am, like I said, I really like medieval art. I was really inspired by it. So I like this kind of like, my art is mostly displayed on black or dark background with some kind of shading. I try to do the shading so that the light, it's like there is no other light, that the light is coming from the character. It's a very medieval thing, and it's a very proto-Renaissance thing, and I actually really loved the concept when I first saw it, so I decided to incorporate that in my art. And The main subject is often mythology and fantasy, because I am also like, I grew up reading fairy tales, not the censored one, as actually I was 5 when I first read the Grimm tales, and not the censored one, the horror ones. So I am really much into mythology, morbid stuff, and fantasy and magic, and some kind of like otherworldly things and fae. And I think always try to incorporate that in my art, because everything is like, I want everything to be otherworldly, like kind of uncanny and very beautiful. Like I am a I am a sucker for beauty.
Awesome. And what technologies and softwares do you mostly use for your works?
So as a communication designer, I am the Adobe girl. I use Adobe Photoshop for my art. I use Adobe Illustrator for my professional work, and I actually know maybe every visual oriented Adobe software there is, because I have to incorporate some in my UX. I do sometimes do animation. I actually do animation. I actually did animation like a few weeks ago. So uh, I do a lot of stuff, and I mainly use Adobe. I once tried Paint Toolside, but it didn't go well with me, so I stuck to Photoshop. I actually wanna transition into Procreate. I am actually planning on getting an iPad this summer. So let's see.
Great. And any advice and tips for a good portfolio and resume for artists?
Oh, okay. So make it visually appealing but not too flashy. Because if you are looking for a professional work, you need it to be sleek and not too flashy, but also with a hint of color and a hint of quirk, because people really like it. And don't be afraid to show your personality. Also, the very basic tip for a portfolio: start and finish it with your best work, because the start and finish are the works that people mostly remember. Like put some mild ones in the middle, but put your very best in start and finish. And also, if you are putting descriptions in your portfolio, which you absolutely should, because it's really interesting, you should also explain a bit, you should tell a bit about your creative process, like this was inspired by this and created by this, and I created this in my basement at 4 a.m. when I was high, like stuff like that. Like show some personality, show some uniqueness, and for the love of God, don't use some chunky Comic Sans font. It's really off-putting.
Yeah, and one of the most important takeaways from all of the episodes I've done when it comes to portfolios and resumes is the one of the things that you said, which you nailed bullseye, basically what I'm trying to say. You said it perfectly. But a correct version of that is like try to put your best work at the top, then your second best work at the bottom. then third the best work, fourth, fifth. Like make it a sandwich till you come to the worst one at the middle. Like worst in relative terms. Not don't actually put your worst works on your portfolio. Like all right, but yeah,
Al-
and
Also, don't put all of your works in portfolio.
exactly. And what are you working on right now that you can tell us about? What kind of project is it? Of course, I mean, if it's something that there's NDA involved, I mean, we can skip the question right now. Or, if that's not the case, please, what are you working on right now?
I actually finished a game for media literacy project. It also can be played in English actually. It was done for MDF, they fight fake news basically in Georgia, and it's actually a hackathon project also. It's a game in which you play a superhero and you have to fight minions who represent like phishing, trolling, and other stuff like one time Mr. Fisher transforms into a Nigerian prince and he begs you for money. So it's a question: will you give him the money? Will you be scammed? So it's kind of like that. I just finished that, and now I actually want to work on my solo project, which are two projects. One is I actually want to translate Georgian fairy tales and Georgian mythology stuff into in English and actually make illustrations for that and make some maybe an ebook of some sort. Maybe I don't know. I'm not looking for it to sell. It's a passion project. If someone will buy it, great. But I actually want to share my passion of Georgian folklore with people. And the second is I've been working on a story for a very long time. Uh, it's about an underground magical fighting ring and a girl who is like I don't know who a girl with anger issues. And this is where the King in Yellow comes from. So I actually want to do a short graphic novel and see where it goes.
Awesome. And I mean, I wanted to interject in the middle of first speaking and just say, I buy it, I'll buy it. And I was like, no, that's too rude, don't do it. But I mean, yeah, like I love mythology and fairy tales as well since I was a kid. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the Georgian version of it is. Are There aren't any English translations by now?
I don't think there are. I
Oh,
really don't think. I've never seen one.
and you probably search a lot for it.
Yes, I actually. There is not enough in Georgian actually in regards to mythology. There is this one book, one or two books, and everyone gets their information from that. Like there is no versatility. Okay, there I have this one passion project. It's a long term project. It's a very long term project in which I wanna go around Georgia, like in many parts of Georgia, because they're very the legends vary from region to region, even though we are a very small country. So I want to explore everything and actually find those legends and fairy tales from people. Like I want to record uh, their fairy tales and legends and some local things like urban legends they have. And I really want to turn them into books because I think it would be very interesting, and in particular because we don't have this very much we don't have this much recognition in mythology or legends or even language, spoken language, because we have three languages. We are a tiny country and we have three very distinct languages. So it's a very fascinating world, and I can't fathom why no one has done anything about it to this day.
Well, that's pretty interesting. And actually, I think ancient Indian, kind of like, what do you call this? Well, here's the thing: they have a term called dharma, which I actually learned it from the Healthy Gamer. Doctor Alok, I forgot his name, but he's a pretty famous podcaster right now. He makes good content, and he explains this term called dharma, which, in a sense, in a nutshell, it means your life's purpose when you find it. Like one of it could be many. So I think, and believe it or not, I'm not kidding. When you were saying about the whole different Georgian, like fairy tales, in my head, I was like, that would be awesome if you could go around the country, ask about different babushkas and grandmas there, stories, and you said it. I was kind of like, what the hell? I'm not kidding. Like I'm being serious, and that's actually like, and the and the reason I said dharma, your kind of life purpose, because that wave pattern of thought jumped into my head, and it jumped into your head as well, and it probably jumped into other people's heads. So it's something that kind of resonates. It's you should do it. You should do it. That's what the universe is trying to tell you. And yeah, that's going to be a really interesting project. And here's the thing: it might not be like the um financially or even in terms of number wise the most like huge thing, but the value of it is, I think, is what if you do this is priceless. Actually, I'm not saying this to be nice or anything. I'm just being serious. Like this project, if it's done, if it will be done, it's going to be super valuable for the culture, Georgian culture, and it's going to be pretty interesting. I mean, I'm tired of hearing mythologies about Zeus and Hades and Poseidon going around messing things up. And not that those mythologies are bad, but I want fresh stuff. And I'm always eager to read from like African mythologies, Chinese mythologies, anything new stuff. Come on, people, let's get to work. Right? Sorry, you were going to say anything?
Actually, Actually, when you mentioned those Greek mythology, there is something that really makes me mad about Greek mythology. It's the myth of Jason and the Golden Fleece. You know the Argonauts.
Which one?
When they go to Colchis to steal the Golden Fleece,
Golden Fleece.
we call them Argonauts. They're Argonauts. It's a golden sheepskin.
I think
They are
it's
like
from
their sheep.
Odyssey. Like from is it from Odyssey? Or sorry, I might have
No, no,
forgotten.
no,
Or
no, no.
please explain.
Okay, this is like me. Have you heard of Medea? No.
Medal?
Okay,
No,
so
sorry.
Medea. Okay, there is this very famous myth about Argonauts, and there is this guy Jason or Jason. I don't know. We call it Jason in Georgian, and he goes like to return his kingdom. Like his evil uncle is in the charge of his country, and he wants his country back. And he says, "If you bring me the golden fleece from Colchis, I will give you your country back." And he knows that it's an impossible task because the king of Colchis is a very strong mage. And you know what? Colchis is actually Georgia, like modern day Georgia. It was Colchis back then. And as a very inhabitant of Colchis, uh, so this Yason goes there and he meets Medea, who is a daughter of the king. She's a princess, and she helps him because she falls in love with him. So they pass their trials with Medea's help, and they steal that golden fleece, and they flee to Greece. So this is played out very heroically, and because like the Greeks stole the fleece for their honor. And I was thinking, has anyone thought about what Colchis experienced in that thing? Because Medea had to kill her own brother to escape. It's a very tragic thing, and it's played like, oh yeah, she killed her brother in like Greek mythology, and that kind of like that. And then Jason left Medea on an island. He left her. And though Medea became stricken with revenge, she got her revenge on him. She like murdered him and his family or something. There was this whole drama, and everyone thinks Medea is a very evil character, but she was not. In like Georgian thing, there is this like book, a man went on a road. I think it's by Otar Chiladze. It's actually translated in English, and it makes people of Kolchis and Medea so tragic characters, and I love it because no one else looks at our side of the story. Like Greeks always were the heroes. They were like, oh yeah, the evil Persians, but Persians weren't evil. So I want to show that side too because Medea is like one of my favorite characters in mythology, and I think Georgian culture should be like more profound and uh, more broadened in the world because like have we ever thought about Medea as anything but a cold-hearted woman who was like driven by revenge? So there's that.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a pretty interesting point. Pretty interesting fact you actually pointed out, and I mean, funny thing is, I actually discovered this guy on YouTube, but he's actually originally a TikToker, and he's an historian and really into mythology, and he makes like funny skits about like ancient mythology, and it's pretty funny. But aside from that, is that yes, and it's not just the particularly Medea part or Georgia part. Like if anyone actually goes out and reads the uh, Greek mythology, like here's the thing: Zeus is the good guy, Poseidon is also the good second kind of the good guy, Hades is the asshole, and yeah, I mean it's all that like the because that's
Actually,
how
Hades was the good guy.
actually he was one of the chillest guys among all of them. He was just chilling in his underworld, and um, he even gave an opportunity to someone to flee the underworld, Orpheus, the fool, the musician. If he didn't look back, but I mean, sorry for spoilers, but he did look back, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a but to actually about the story you said, I actually see nothing like the only misrepresentation I could see with that is the fact that Jason left her on the island and just yeah he was a sociopath for doing that, like yeah, he was a psychopath for doing that. But aside from the fact that she killed her brother, I mean, brothers and sisters, they're all titles we give to a structure of society. She acted on her free will, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it sounds tragic, nothing wrong. But the wrong thing is that Jason threw her, just used her, and just threw her away, which was kind of like for just a country, for just possessing a country, he just did all that for yeah, kind of
Also, Medea was a teen. She
yeah,
was a teenager.
yeah, and not just that. Like in the ancient world, I mean thank you by the way for mentioning Persia as well. I mean because yeah, I mean for anyone who doesn't know, I'm actually Iranian. And but in the ancient world, Greece, Georgia, Iran, like Persia, sorry, like at the time, it was all about like power and being the dominant one. Like here's the thing, I assure you, like Georgia, Persia, every single country or nation, civilization of the past did horrible stuff to each other because they had to. And not just they had to, by had to, I mean if they wanted to conquer and expand, they would do that. Every single civilization nation, of course they're relative, but there was something that was kind of part of the nature of like existing in those times. But of course, I mean those kind of things are not acceptable today. I mean because yeah, that we're living in a civilized world right now. I mean we don't need to do that anymore. And yeah, that's kind of interesting. And let's move on to the next question. What area beside the area you're working on right now would you be interested to explore and learn in the future? What I mean by that, imagine if you had like an abundance of free time. All right. Now, in that free time, what would you learn, or not just learn, do in that free time beside illustration and UX that you're doing right now?
I would actually like to explore cultural anthropology. I've been like you you basically see how passionate I am for other cultures and my culture and mythology and legends. So I actually was considering a degree, a second degree in cultural anthropology, and I am still considering that. Uh, Aside from that, I was actually considering that making a YouTube channel and dedicating it to art history and art in general, like modern art, like postmodern art or Renaissance, and discussing millions of topics in art world. And I'm actually going to do that because I recently bought a microphone. It hasn't arrived yet, so yeah, I'm really considering that actually.
Awesome. Yeah, and definitely, please, as I said, I always say this to every artist when they're passionate about the project or they want to do something. Please let me know in the future when it's done so I can share it with other people and also myself can. Because here's the thing, I'm gonna be honest with you here. If you like make these videos in a way that I can listen it on the background, I will 100% subscribe. Like it's not even because I want to, oh, I want to be supportive of the guest or thing. Like I'm being real here with you. If it's something like about mythology and there's like I could listen to it like a podcast, and I can learn along the way or do stuff. I mean, I'm always looking for fresh new stuff. So you know. So I mean that's something to consider. Like of course add some visuals to it, for people who prefer to watch the video, but also make it in a way that you can listen to it in the background. I kind of do it with my. I mean, of course, it's different with the podcast because podcast is usually audio version, but for the video version, for I don't know if you check the YouTube ones, and for anyone who's listening to this and haven't checked the YouTube channel of the podcast, which is I don't know why you haven't, do please now, because there's like video, like different time lapse of artworks of each artist I have on the video of the podcast, which I actually prepared the video of your artworks before you got in the call. So I mean, you're gonna see what I mean by that. So yeah, that's definitely a suggestion to keep in mind. And I mean, all the power to you. I mean, that sounds
I would
interesting. And with everything that's been said and done, to conclude what we discussed in this episode, give us a roadmap for someone who is zero in visual arts and wants to get to the place you are in terms of skill set, like anything that could come to your mind, books, courses, anything. So basically, give us a roadmap, and what kind of step by step process would that roadmap look like?
Okay, so I started very young, so obviously I'm not the person to be considered the master in mastering the skill in a in a short amount of time. But I would advise my advice to anyone who wants to learn how to draw or how to paint, just do it. There are like millions of courses on Skillshare, on YouTube. Everything is on the internet. And you know what? Art is not art. Drawing or painting is a skill. You just need some creativity and a lot of practice. Like, it's not gonna be easy, but it's gonna be very rewarding once you get used to it. Like, start with the basics. I always say, start with the basics. Don't buy an expensive tablet or an iPad. So, oh no, I wanna learn how to draw. No, get a paper, get a pencil, do the basics. You will thank me later, because this is the fundamentals are the most important. Because when you learn the fundamentals, and it's a very boring process, I must say, but when you do learn the basics, it's very easy after that. It's like you know how to do the basic stuff. You know how to do a round shape, how to shade a cube, and you learn that everything is a combination of geometric forms, and it's very easy to go after that.
All right, that's honestly beautifully said. And yeah, it couldn't be just because I get a lot of the. That's actually one of the questions I ask everyone, by the way, like the kind of like a timeline section of the podcast. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like that. That's exactly it. Awesome. Thanks for that. And well, we've come to the end of the podcast. And thank you so much for coming by. Is there? How can people contact you if they had a question or just wanted to say something, ask something?
You can contact me on my Twitter. You can contact me on my Instagram. It's zizi not everywhere. You can even contact me on my email. I'm always online for that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to anyone who is interested. Thanks for inviting me. By the way, it's a really it's a really big thing for me. It's like my first podcast. It's my first big thing, and I'm really happy for it. So thank you very much, and everyone who listened to this.
Yeah, my pleasure. And well, have a good day, everyone. See you in the next episode. Bye.